And David Albritton.
David Albritton here. Good morning.
Great. Good morning, David. Okay. Now is the time for public comment on any of the action items. We always appreciate input from members of the public. PSTA has developed several easy ways for you to comment prior to and during the virtual meeting. Number one, during the meeting, the public can call into the meeting and provide comment at the number shown on the screen, which is 1-408-418-9388. The meeting ID is 173-630-9656. Let me stop a second for that. Brad, my notes have a different number, but I'm reading the one off the screen. Okay, individuals will be able to speak for 3 minutes during the public comment period. Again, to make a public comment today during the meeting, members of the public should call the number on the screen, which is 1-408-418-9388, and the meeting ID is 173-720-7049. Excuse me, 630-9656. Sorry about that.
Right.
1-773-630-9656. Okay. The second way that the public can comment is to submit written comments prior to the meeting by mail to PSTA. The third option allows the public to submit comments via email before or during the meeting at publiccomments@psta.net. Are there any comments from members of the public, either on the phone or in writing?
There are no members of the public on the phone with public comments on this time, and Clarissa will confirm whether we've received written comment. Clarissa?
We have not received any written public comment.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment.
All right. All comments needed to be completed as part of the public record for this meeting and would be considered by the committee prior to any actions being taken. When addressing the committee, the members of the public should first state his or her name and his or her address. We don't have to worry about that at this moment. There may be public comment later on. Action items. Let's move on then to our first action item, number 3A, which is to approve the August 19, 2020 minutes. Do I have a motion from a finance or planning committee member to approve the August 19 meeting minutes? Please state your name.
Darden Rice, move approval.
Richard
you.
Bennett,
Schulman,
I'll
second.
support.
Okay, and we have a second from Richard Bennett. So Darden Rice and Richard Bennett. Thank you very much, both of you. Okay, this is a roll call vote to approve the minutes.
Richard
Richard
Bennett,
Bennett.
yes.
Please state. Okay,
Vince Cox, yes.
Vince
Mr.
Cox.
Chair, is Darden Rice a member of the Finance Committee?
She's a member of
Allowed to
the
make that chair?
She's a member of the planning committee.
Well, this item is a Finance Committee, so,
Both.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Strachey, no, it's both. We do the minutes. It's a combined committee meeting of finance and planning. So either a planning committee member or a finance committee can vote on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Brad. I vote yes.
Okay.
Okay. Josh Schulman.
Josh Schulman, yes.
Okay, David Albritton.
Dave Albritton, yes.
Darden Rice.
You made the
Yes.
motion.
Keith Sabile. Not present, okay. And myself, Joe Barkley, I vote yes. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Okay, our first item to consider is item 3B, which is the Park Street Terminal Roof, and Abhishek Dayal and Al Burns will guide us through this, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Finance Committee. My name is Abhishek Dayal, Director of Project Management, and I'm joined by Al Burns, Director of Procurement. And this item is for your approval to approve a contract with Advanced Roofing, Inc. for construction of the roofing system at the Park Street bus terminal for a not to exceed amount of $308,000, including a 10% contingency.
All right, let me stop you for a second, Abhishek. I should have read one other paragraph. I'm
Oh, you're
sorry.
fine.
This first action item is to replace a roof which is nearly 30 years old on our downtown Clearwater Terminal Center. Ultimately, we hope to secure funding for a modern new center. This is a long-needed repair to respect our customers. PSCA's Director of Project Management, Abhishek Dayal, and our Procurement Director, Al Burns, are available for questions on this. So Abhishek, go ahead with your presentation. I'm sorry I had to interrupt you there.
No problem, sir. Thank you for the introduction. And as Chair Bartley said, this roof is in need of repairs for a while. It's an important facility for us. More than 12 bus routes serve this facility located in downtown Clearwater. And then as Chair Bartley also mentioned, we are contemplating a new facility in the city of Clearwater, and discussions are ongoing on building that facility. But at this moment, we are looking to do some repairs. And we've seen a lot of ponding issues on the roof, and we've also seen some roof leaking happening, and a lot of the recent rains and the winds have not made things any easier. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Al Burns to talk a little bit about the procurement process for the roofing contractor.
Thank you, Abhishek. On August 3rd, we released an invitation for bid, going out and seeking bid offer orders. On August 11th, we had a pre-bid meeting. In the pre-bid meeting that we had, it was a little unique. We conducted the pre-bid in a social distance manner. However, we gave the ability for people to actually do a site visit and go on top of the roof and actually walk the site. The IFB was posted on PSCA's website, Demand Star, and on Bonfire. And as you can tell in the table, we received two bids. We received one from Advanced Roofing in the amount of $279,909.92, and Tampa Contracting Services, Inc., $294,804.20. I like to note that Advanced Roofing was one of the contractors that did do the site walkthrough and actually walk the roof, as well as submitted a number of good questions during the solicitation process. One of the highlights of this procurement, and I'm pleased to say as a DBELO, that even though it did not have a DBE goal on it, Advanced Roofing has committed to a 3.15% DBE goal, and that is going to be performed by Concrete Solutions Group out of Broward County. Additionally, the bid submitted by Advanced Roofing was deemed to be fair and reasonable and was below the engineer's estimate. As usual, procurement completed a responsibility check, which included an EPLS check, business credit report, and also to make sure that they're in good standing. With that, I concur with the recommendation this morning, and I'll turn it back over to Abhishek.
Thank you, Al. And so I just wanted to add that the funding for this roof replacement will be through capital reserves, which is programmed in our budget. So the recommendation from staff to the Finance Committee is to approve a contract with Advanced Roofing for the construction of the roofing system at the Park Street facility for a not to exceed amount of $308,000. That includes a 10% contingency. With that, Al and I are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both for your good presentation. Are there questions from any member of the board? Yes, I recognize Dave Albritton.
Well, it's mostly a comment than a question. I hate spending this kind of money when we're working very hard to get a deal where we can switch over to the intermodal center. But I realize this is an old site, and we have to. The buses can't even fit. And Brad, this also has. We're raising the roof too in the front to allow the buses to get under it. That's part of this cost, right?
Well, and Abhishek can correct me, but I think that the answer to that is no. Unfortunately, not. We're not able to actually lift the roof, but hopefully we will be able to get the buses closer with this replacement project. But not actually. It was more expensive to actually build trusses and things. Actually, we didn't think it was worth it because, as you said, hopefully we'll be out of here relatively soon. So we tried to minimize the expense.
Okay, so this is just for basically the repair of the puddling and the leaking and everything that's happening, keeping our customers a little bit drier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Raise your hand. Yes, Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what do we have an estimated time frame for when we think we might be moving to a new facility? I realize it's in process, but I mean, are we talking a year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years? What is there a sense of that?
That's an excellent question. I think Abhishek will have the answer to that.
Yeah, so I think as also Chair Bartley mentioned that we have been working with city staff, City of Clearwater, on the site. I think back in August, City Council had a workshop to understand their site needs for a new city hall, and that's where it was determined that the site at Court and Myrtle would be an appropriate site for PSCA to build an intermodal facility. And so we are working with city staff to put out an RFP to do the actual design for the facility. So I anticipate it'll be at least 3 to 5 years until we have a fully functioning site. Having said that, we're also looking at ways to maybe bring temporarily operations into another site to allow for city to work at options for the city hall. So that process is ongoing. We're going to have a clearer picture once we know the time frame on the city's plans as well as ours.
So thank you for that. And I'm not a roofer, so I don't know, how that would actually work from a repair standpoint. But if it takes 3 years to get there and we're spending $300,000, it's $100,000 a year for those costs. Would patching and managing the current roof be less expensive? And did we look at that option versus spending $100,000 a year for a roof that's going to get torn down?
And I think Henry wanted to speak to that. So I'll just say is we've done those patchings for the past 25 or so years. And I think it's at a point where, given all the rains that we've been having recently, it does need an overhaul of the roof. So that's why this item was brought forward to the committee. Henry, is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
No, it's a good question, Commissioner Schulman. Abhishek pretty much narrowed it down. We've been sealing over the years, patching, both with commercial grade rubberized products, and at some point we even tried using Flex Seal. Yes, the stuff you see on the infomercial, it does work. It's just combined with the condition of the roof versus the high intensity of the heat that those patches have a very short shelf life, and we're just at the point where there's more surface area that needs patching than we can keep up with at this point.
Okay, thank you. Vince Cox, please.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Chair. And one issue I would think that we would address with this, with that kind of maintenance, patching maintenance, so on and so forth, we've been doing over the years, is there's a safety issue here too, and I think that needs to be addressed. We wouldn't want anything to collapse or anything, so I'm all for doing the full repair. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I have some questions. It's a interesting situation when Commissioner Schulman had the same questions I did. But here's my question. This is still not a done deal with the city, but my understanding is the city's going to knock this building down and build an entirely new structure with a different format. So if it's going to be a few years, that gets pretty expensive on an annual cost, as Commissioner Schulman correctly stated. If I could ask Commissioner Albritton to weigh in a little bit. David, a recent Tampa Bay newspapers article, it's no longer the Bel Air Bee or whatever you are in your location. They just have one newspaper for everybody now. But there was quite a large write-up about the discussions of the city of Clearwater as to whether or not they were going to be willing to release the Myrtle Avenue land. And so I wonder if you could clarify that a little bit, because if they're not going to do that, we're going to have to, invest more money in the existing structure.
Well, this is something I've been working on for probably over 10 years. I used to own the key parcel on that lot, and I sold it to the city with the promise that they would do an intermodal center back in 2008, I think it was. It was right before Greenlight Pinellas. And even though that referendum failed, I still want to see this come to fruition. So that's why I am passionate about this. I want to see this happen. Now, the city hired a consultant and it kind of threw a wrench in things when he came in and said, this would be a great site for City Hall. And they were pushing that. But we did have a special meeting back the beginning of August, and everybody's on board now with having it on the PSD, the PSTA bus site. I've been thinking probably for 15 years that that's where we should have had a parking garage for our downtown and for Imagine Clearwater that is under construction. So I'm really pushing on that front to get that built so we don't open Imagine Clearwater and have nowhere to park people. And then City Hall will go on top of the parking garage. But as with anything, there's lots of moving parts. The PST owns a part of that block, but the other part's owned by Pinellas County. So we've got to do negotiations with them as well to buy their part of the lot, which they have, I guess, over the years said we have first right of refusal, I guess. But so those are things that we're working on right now. I did talk to the assistant city manager and the city manager a couple of weeks ago, and it concerned me because they said, well, it's going to take 3 years to move PSTA off of their site. And I'm like, why? I mean, we know where we're going. Well, we have to build a PSTA intermodal center before we can move them. I said, well, why don't you move them temporarily on the lot next to the Court Myrtle site? And then while theirs under construction, they can just move in. And I did talk to Brad about that, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Abhishek about it. But so anyway, that's kind of all the little moving parts that we're talking about. But we're committed to have a parking garage in City Hall on the PSTA site. I want the intermodal center to come to fruition. We're pushing on that. I'm trying to get all our businesses and our chamber, which is Amplify, to write letters. The city's going to write letters on the, so we can get finally get hopefully some funding this next year on the actual site. So we're going to get everybody involved in Clearwater to give positive reinforcement to that. So hopefully we can be successful. PSTA can be successful in getting the grant for construction of the site. So that's kind of where we are right now. I'm hoping that this can happen in 3 years or less than 3 years where we can move over. But that was my concern with putting a lot of money in this roof, because I could see this is going to happen. But I don't know. I was thinking it was more like 100,000, and we were raising the roof, and now 300,000, and we're not raising the roof. Seems like a lot of money to me, but you know.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay, Brad?
Well, yeah, and well, first of all, yes, Commissioner Albritton has been incredibly passionate and energetic and motivated to get us into a new site, and he is leading that effort strongly. I mean, this is a really tough call, and it's real. Well, we could go either way. It is very expensive. I completely agree. I thought we could do it less, but for months I have been presented by our good folks. $500,000, $1 million is needed to invest in that 30-year-old facility. It's really not doing great. And back and forth, we were trying to work with the city on where they were going to put their city hall. The county backed out of a joint facility. So finally, I felt like, well, we should be conservative. Conservative approach. We're not sure what's going to happen. We need to fix this roof for our customers. They are going in there every day. Let's come up with the lowest cost possible repair we can possibly do and get this thing going forward. And of course, coronavirus delayed some of the procurement and things like that. But to bring it down to under $300,000 is the best. I think I'm really thankful for Alan, what Abhishek have done to do that, but it's still very expensive. Now, Commissioner Albritton is pushing I think it's accurate. The best case scenario for a new transit center in Clearwater, which we have no money to construct yet, would be get the design done, which we're doing now, get a grant by next summer and get it under construction. So that's 3 years from today that we'd be moving in. Now, the idea of a temporary move PSTA out of its current facility into a parking lot and have 10,000 customers mill around a parking lot with shelters and hopefully temporary bathrooms. That's probably at least 18 months away, I would say. Best case scenario. So I felt it was necessary, just given everything, just to go ahead and get this roof repair done. Keep pushing forward as best we can. It's going to be very, very competitive to get that grant to get us a new transit center. But at least in the meantime, we can keep our customers dry and maybe a little bit brighter up there in Clearwater.
Okay.
But we could go either way on this. That's my thought. I mean, Commissioner Schulman, I know you have a comment.
Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Brad. And I understand, I don't quite understand exactly what the leaks look like and what's happening in the customer experience, because we don't have any pictures for us to see and understand that. But I will share that we are exiting our rainy season. And so, if we also have the possibility to, push this off for 5 to 7 months, to get some more clarity, hopefully in that time frame, about a timetable for a temporary space, timetable for moving forward, that might be something that we can look at, because it does feel, like Brad, you said, in 18 months we could be in temporary spaces, in which case it was $300,000 for an 18-month fix. And so I think it might warrant using some of this time when it's not going to be raining anyway, to see how the picture comes together.
Okay, anyone else have a comment? Did I see a hand? Commissioner Albritton, you raised your hand again? I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that. I just hate seeing us spend this kind of money. I mean, it's something that is going to only last at the most 3 years. And, they're going to have a 20-year, they're doing this job for it to last 20 years, I'm sure. And, we could maybe use that money for a temporary lot if we can get out. And I know that Brad is now talking to Bill Horn, our city manager, monthly on this, because I felt that we've had some frustration on the Clearwater side about PSDA's plans, and I've been trying to explain to them, well, it's not PSDA's fault. I mean, the county and the city, you know, that held up plans for probably a year and a half, and then this, you know, this site has been on the horizon for 10 years. We've been talking about this, so we're finally, I've got them saying we're moving forward on this. Brad's talking to the city monthly now. So I think there's good communication between us, and I'm really hoping that we could do it less than, I mean, I'd like to see us get in there in 3 years because we need that parking garage for our big park project. And we can't, I don't want to have that set aside for 3 years, have the park open and nowhere to park. So I think we can,
Yeah.
I think we can make some progress on getting in there and being successful about that.
Okay. Al, would you go ahead?
Mr. Chair, I would like to offer a suggestion or maybe a possibility. If we could have authorization to award the contract contingent, my concern is that we went through the whole solicitation process. We don't have to award a contract, but we can have that kind of in the ballast. If the board says, okay, now we've looked at it and a couple months later, we're able to award it, but we don't have to go through the whole procurement process again. We only received 2 bids. My concern is that if we go out and the procurement's canceled, that it might not garner interest down the road. So if it does move to where it's delayed, maybe we can hold off. We can have the contract kind of shovel ready, for lack of better terms. It's rather than going through the procurement process a couple months later if we end up having to go through it. Just a suggestion.
Okay.
Well, hey, Al, do you know how long the bids are good for in the solicitation?
I was just looking at it, and the way the term of the contract is written, the term is until it's complete, until it's actually completed. So I have to go back and look and see exactly how long the bids are due. I think it's gonna be how long the bids are good for. And their pricing is to be held firm for 120 days from the time that we received bids, which was September 1st. So the pricing is good for 120 days on this bid. After 120 days, we would have to go back out for solicitation if we don't award.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we go ahead and defer this and not take action today on this. If we have 100, we have until the end of the year at least that these bids are good. Let's just hold off and see if we can really make some good progress in the next 60 days or so with the city on really getting a good plan to get some funding and get a design done on the new transit center before we make this kind of investment in the current facility. It's going to be torn down. I think Commissioner Bennett has a comment too.
Yes, I do. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Bennett.
Yes, I was going to just kind of say the same thing Brad had said. I think that I would like to make a motion that we table this for at least a month and then come back and look at it a month from now or 2 months from now.
Okay.
Let's say table it for 2 months.
Okay. Let me ask, do we have Alan on this call, Brad?
We don't, no.
Okay. I just want to make sure what the legal ramifications are if we do that. Because again, there was a lot of time with Alan, his team, and Abhishek and his people, and I don't want to let things fall through the cracks, but I concur that if there's some way we could throw blue tarps on top of this stuff or something else to just do something temporarily, that would be logical, given the fact that we've got a lot of moving pieces and not everything is nailed down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and Al gave me some comfort by just noting that this is a low bid contract. So whatever roofing company puts in the low bid wins. But if they can hold their prices for 120 days, then we've got a little bit of time.
It's in the contract that the pricing has to be held for 120 days, sir.
Okay. Do I have concurrence to table this motion, or do we need to actually make a motion to table this temporarily?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well,
We would go ahead and just pull it off.
Yeah, Richard made a motion to table this for 1 or 2 months. Do I have a second on that? Let's vote on that, just to be on the safe.
I'll second that, Chair Barkley, Vince Cox.
Okay, thank you, Vince. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read the roll on that revised motion by Commissioner Bennett. Okay, so please state your name when you do your vote. Commissioner Bennett.
Richard Bennett, yes.
Vince Cox.
Vince Cox, yes.
Commissioner Saraki.
Dan Saraki, yes.
Commissioner Schulman.
Josh Schulman, yes.
And myself, I vote yes also. So that passes unanimously. We will hold off on this for 1 or 2 months and then bring it back to the committee. Okay. And thank you all for your comments. They were excellent. Appreciate it. Okay. The next topic for our discussion today is the shelter maintenance contract, cleaning contract, and Henry and Al will walk us through this one. But let me just say that this is something that's important. As many of you know, I wrote on the 34 and the 52 a week or 2 ago, and I was disappointed in the fact that there was trash around the bus stops as we were passing them or stopping to pick people up. And I really think we need to find a contractor that's going to do the job. So go ahead, Henry and Al. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Henry Lukasik, Director of Maintenance. So we have an action item before you to recommend approval of a 2-year contract and with 3 1-year options for shelter maintenance to American Janitorial. And it's a total contract not to exceed $3 million over the 5 years. Joining me, and he'll have an opportunity to introduce himself later on, will be Jeff Simmons, who's the Vice President of American Janitorial. But before that, what I would like to do is just, for some, it would be a refresher for some of our newer commissioners on the Finance Committee. It'll kind of be an overview of just what our shelter maintenance and cleaning contract consists of. So if we can start that presentation, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so a lot of times when I come before the committee, I talk a lot about fleet maintenance items, but we do have a facilities maintenance division, and that is a staff of 12 men and women, and they are responsible for maintaining basically what we call fixed assets. We have 8 physical buildings. 4 of those are on our campus here on Scherer, and we have 4 customer service centers. And in addition, the ultimate maintenance of all the equipment and machinery in those buildings, and also our fixed route amenities. The division is staffed 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'd like to take a moment to just say that the facilities division is run by the superintendent of facilities, Melissa Nevitt, and I have to say, in the 2.5 years that she has been in this role, she's done an outstanding job just with the number of facilities and all of the assets that have to be maintained on the facility site. So I just wanted to point that out. Next slide, please. So here's some statistics. I think you've heard these over the last month or two. So we have currently a total 4,382 physical bus stop locations. We heard last month that we now have 659 shelters, close to 1,750 bus benches. Those go in every day. 4 customer service centers. That's our Grand Central, Pinellas Park, Park Street, and the Williams Park booth. We have what we call transfer hubs. These are unmanned, basically hubs. Those are located at the Largo and Walmart, the Tyrone Mall, Countryside Mall, the Gateway Malls, basically major conversions of where buses so people can transfer. And we have 2 park and ride lots, the Ulmerton lot over in Largo and the 22nd Ave Street lot in St. Petersburg. So as I mentioned before, facilities maintenance, one of their roles is what we call the installation and maintenance of our amenity infrastructure. When you hear this term amenities, it's basically everything that you see at a physical bus stop. As you know, some bus stops just have a stop, and then it kind of grows incrementally from there, depending upon the number of riders, which board and a light. Could be a stop and a trash can, a bike rack, maps, boards, benches, semi seats. These are the 2-seaters that you see. That's a combination of a bus stop and a 2-seat kind of platform. So that's what when you hear that term amenities, that's what that means. Next slide, please. So with the shelter cleaning and maintenance, it is a sizable operation out there because we have a sizable network of infrastructure out there in the county. Now, you see some of these figures here. It is an annual budget of $600,000, about 20 full-time equivalent staffers, 73,000 total staff hours, and we're right at the point where it's about 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Now, shelter maintenance and the cleaning of those has always been outsourced, at least over the last decade here at PSTA. It first started off as kind of half of it being outsourced just to keep up with the demand, and then just in order to meet the increased demand of keeping the amenities maintained and cleaned, it has gone basically 100% outsourcement. And really because that's due to one, the demand or the frequency that is needed, and 2, the economics of it. It is much more economical to outsource this operation than it would be to perform it 100% in-house. One thing I want to mention is some of those numbers that you see there. I've been here approximately 7.5 years now. Feels like I just got here yesterday. But these numbers have essentially doubled over the last 6 years. It used to be a contract of only about $350,000, and you can generally half the other numbers that you see. So it has doubled over the last 6 years more. Again, I'll keep saying as the need has dictated. And one of the things we'll get into is just how much they are doing with trash cleanup, which is a prevalent issue. Next slide, please. So we're going to go through kind of the high points of the way this contract is broken up. We call them crews. So the first one you'll see is the bus stop cleaning. So typically 4 to 6 crews are made up of approximately 2 people per crew. These are the folks that get out there and hit all of the physical bus stops, and their sole mission is to just do quick cleanup, maintenance, empty the trash. And we're basically out there about 6 days a week, and you can kind of see how many hours that we assess to that. Next slide, please. So let's take a moment and talk about trash. I did have the opportunity, along with Brad and Abhishek, to attend a good meeting with Commissioner Rice earlier this week. And we did hear some of the issues regarding trash, especially in the St. Petersburg area, which we have taken into account. And I believe we have a follow-up meeting planned with some of the folks from city sanitation to see just how we can combine resources and tackle cleaning up, doing better at cleaning and improving up. But one thing I wanted to point out is PSTA picks up a lot of trash countywide as it is, and this is just kind of a year over year. This is in pounds. This is in pounds of trash that we clean up, and you can see that it's grown incrementally. FY19, we were close to 600,000 pounds of trash a year that we clean up. I have a footnote at the bottom that as of FY20, which is October through June, we're just shy of 500,000 pounds of trash, and we still have a few more months left to go. I think we'll exceed that this year. One of the other things I want to mention is that when we talk about trash, it's not what I call the typical transit passenger refuse, the papers and carry out bags from restaurants or soda cans. We see everything out there. We see construction debris, we see appliances, coolers, we'll see car parts, we will see people that look like they cleaned out their home and they put it in a bus shelter. But anyways, the bottom line is we see it all, we pick it up, we dispose of it. If it's next to a PSTA bus stop, it really doesn't matter if it looks like it was brought there by passengers. We're going to clean it up and do our part in the county and take care of it. One thing that I want to mention and point out, especially as Commissioner Barkley rode the bus, you probably have noticed that we do have onboard trash cans on all of our buses. Those were installed about 7 years ago as a pilot program, and really it was to start another opportunity to capture some of the waste that's generated. Some statistics on that is, on average, when we empty those cans, when we turn the buses around each night, it basically generates about 630 pounds of trash a night. So on a yearly annualized basis, you're looking at about 230,000 more pounds of trash just coming off the buses from those little cans on them. And if you combine that to what is being picked up physically at our bus stops, that is close to almost 780,000 pounds. Now, if we equate that to pure tonnage, that is close to 390 tons of trash that we are picking up on an annualized basis to date. As we know, we still have a lot more to pick up, and we'll get into some of those, how we address those specific areas a little later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, the second part of our cleaning contract is the actual pressure washing and sanitizing of our shelters and terminals. So our crews are out there 6 days a week, and generally I often say, well, I don't actually see them out there, and the reason for that is we try to do it during off-peak hours when passengers are not actually at the shelters. And so that occurs between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. One thing that our contractors do have is, as they are working in the roadways, whether it be on city or FDOT roadways, they are certified through FDOT in maintenance of traffic to be working in those roadways. So they'll do the cones, they've got the strobe lights when they're out there. But our 3 main terminals are washed weekly, and of course they're hitting about 45 shelters a week. And out of 659 shelters that we have currently in the system, we're essentially getting to them about three or four times a year. It really depends on the frequency and the ridership at those shelters. Some of our outlying shelters will receive a little bit less attention, but those that are heavily used along the corridors, we will hit more often. Next slide, please. Of course, at our man terminals, we do have custodial staff there, so we do have restroom cleaning. Again, they're mostly almost 7 days a week. We have increased the presence due to the COVID pandemic of staff there cleaning the restrooms, hitting the high points, cleaning them continuously, roughly about every 10 minutes. They're out there. They're not only hitting the public restrooms, but they're also at our man terminals. We do have breakout restrooms and little areas for the operators, and of course the CSR areas. So they're cleaning them constantly. We're going to continue doing that into the future until until otherwise. Next slide, please. Last but not least, during the day, we have a floater crew. This is a staff of one crew. They're out there 5 days a week. And this particular crew handles the hotbed issues. This is any reports of graffiti, and of course, trash cleanup where needed. Next slide, please. So managing all this takes what I call technology. We have a centralized report tracking system. This is where all the reports come in. We're able to analyze, manage our workflow processes, and run statistics and assign work crews as needed. Next slide. If you've never seen this map before, this is a geographic representation of where all of our bus stops are in the county. Every single one of them, we're able to select one, zoom in, see what is there for amenities and ridership. Next slide, please. On the contractor side, they also deploy elements of technology. This is just a few of them: Maptitude, Fleetmatics. PSTA is able to directly communicate our central reporting system to the contractors, and they have the ability through their mapping system to assign work crews to the most efficient routes possible. Next slide, please. So their system is able to plot the most efficient routes. They can import the work orders and of course find geographic patterns that really will make their time out there much more effective and efficient as they hit the stops. Next slide, please. Last but not least, these are just some examples. We use analytics to find out where we're allocating most of our staff time, what's taking up our time. Again, these are examples. We do keep this up to date. I believe that the most prevalent issue, of course, is the trash cleanup. Next slide, please. And finally, keeping our fixed route system clean. It's a large scale undertaking. It cannot be accomplished without the assistance of subcontractors. And it's more than just picking up trash and washing shelters. It is all of the individual items that you see listed on the screen in front of you. So it is a quite extensive operation. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Al to discuss the procurement side of this contract.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Al Burns again. This was I learned a lot during the solicitation process. I've been in transit for about 20 years and I'm always learning. We released this solicitation on July 1st. And it was in accordance with all of our policies and procedures. We posted it on DemandStar and on our website. And on August 4th, we received 2 proposals. On August 13th, we evaluated the proposals, and the incumbent, American Janitorial Incorporated, came in overwhelmingly ranked highest. However, Henry and we wanted to make sure with the recent circumstances, i.e. COVID, that we felt compelled to make sure that we had the incumbent present to us, not to be evaluated because it was overwhelming that they were the highest ranked firm, but to give us some reassurance. So on September 2nd, AJI, Jeff Simmons came in and he presented to us his plan, his staffing plan, and all the nuances that his firm does in order to embark on this engagement that Henry just gave an overview of. The evaluation committee determined that AJI is the most qualified and reasonable to perform this service. Even though they're the incumbent, we did do a background check on their firm, EPLS, financial check, and I'm pleased to report, Mr. Chair, that everything came back positive. or with that in good standing. I asked Henry and I asked Brad after the interview process, and especially Mr. Chair, after your comments at the last board meeting, we took those very seriously. And I asked Brad and Henry if it was okay if Mr. Jeff Simmons, the Vice President of American Janitorial Incorporated, comes in this morning and presents his firm to the Finance Committee just to give you that reassurance. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Jeff Simmons, Vice President of American Janitorial, and give him a couple of minutes for some
Okay.
remarks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Simmons, go ahead.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. So again, I'm Jeff Simmons with American Janitorial, and we've enjoyed our partnership and relationship with PSTA over the last 5 years, and we have watched the contract and the needs grow through Pinellas County. Thanks again for everything we've been through together the last 5 years, and honestly, we're looking forward to the next 5. This contract means a lot to me personally, as well as our company. We started this 5 years ago, and we sat down and we developed some softwares and got real efficient with your system. For the first 90 days, myself, our logistics coordinator, we were out there. I've emptied every one of your trash cans in your system personally, just to create efficiency, make sure we were safe on the roads and get things started. When we heard the comments that were made in the board meeting, that really hurts me in my heart. So we deployed every management we had to go inspect every route in St. Pete. And what we find, sir, is a lot of this. I'm not an excuse maker. I'm a 100% accountability type guy. But what we've known, if you look at the slides Henry's presented, that the amount of trash that we picked up over the year, we're still servicing most of your stops one time a week. So by the time, I'll tell you this, when I was doing it personally 5 years ago, by the time 1 week would go by, when we got back to a particular stop, that trash can was full. And there would be things on the ground because some people just don't like to put trash in the trash can. But now that we've seen the need grow for 5 years, it has been, there's more of a need, there's no doubt. However, and the best we could with the frequencies we have to work, very sensitive to keeping up and make us, and this relationship means a lot to us. And, we're here.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to add that AJI is a locally owned company. All the employees. And once again, the recommendation incorporated AJI. If there are any questions.
Everyone, any questions from the board? Yes.
The representative from colleagues, problem-solving approach, but the representative from American Jan gets a lot of blame for a situation at these areas, which requires us to the litter issue, perception of our support for transit. We want to keep up a positive image, and we on the planning committee.
Thank you, and bear with me. I do have quite some operating funds. Actually, it looks like Debbie might be looking that up.
I will see if I can look that up.
Item for janitorial supplies.
Question, Mr. Schulman. And so Missy Neville to go out and have American as a standalone contract. Companies like American Janitorial, we got I think it was a prayer, and if I'm not mistaken, $1,000 over 5 years. Janitorial supplies, and came to the board maybe about twice, 300,000. But Ms. K explained, I think you guys are cleaning like every 30 minutes. His cleaning supplies increased from when he was first buying those out on that. I have been to negotiations with Jeff. What he initially paid that you make a proper areas that we could have.
You did, and now you're comfortable in saying that had we services and supplies.
In my professional procurement, it would have cost us more than $3 million over 5 years. Yes.
Verifying that it's just around 600,000.
Just generally speaking, if there's trash dumped illegally, which, a little bit of both depending on where, Do we know?
If it's 30 feet away, tell you that between or what have you. So, and we'll,
Customer experience deteriorate based on and yeah, but I at least wanted to mention that idea.
With the St. Pete City Council, a new initiative that we're going to try. And I know Jeff does that too. Of St. Pete, especially, and Clearwater does it. Washer is PSTA's responsibility. No, we can establish.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, just one comment on that. I'm working within municipalities to see about increasing fines. Really not something they should be doing, because trying to change that behavior and do the right things is warranted.
2-year contract with a 3-1.
Are there any other questions? Jeff, you said that at least once a trash can, et cetera.
That they fill out, and we do get comments from that from time to time of drivers inform us of where there's trash and stuff. So yeah, we can kind of redouble our efforts on that, because I agree. They're good eyes, and they can tell us quickly when there's a problem.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Saraki. All right, so I'm going to go ahead.
Richard Bennett, yes.
Vince Cox.
Dan,
I vote yes. So we have, now we don't do this with every comment. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Yes, sir.
If you'd like, I can ask a few more.
Let's move on now to Clever Devices, real-time software maintenance agreement. Julie Cagliostro and Al Burns are going to present this one.
Julie, you're muted.
Yeah, whoever's speaking is muted.
It's me, and that's a thing. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Today, I'd like to introduce an action item to renew the Clever Devices software and maintenance contract in a not-to-exceed amount of $260,662. This is an annual contract. Clever Devices provides the software and hardware for PSTA's Intelligent Transportation System, and they've been doing this since 2010. This real-time communication system is the backbone for the PSTA fleet, and the entire operations staff relies on this hardware and software to manage and monitor the buses. It's also integrated with scheduling and dispatch, the onboard cash collection system, the mobile payment system, real-time passenger information, automatic vehicle maintenance, the onboard automated bus announcements, and the wayside signs as well. These are mission-critical systems, and they play a vital role in the positive ridership experience. Therefore, it's imperative that we keep this contract up to date. Clever is a proprietary system, and therefore we don't have a choice of vendors at this time. However, I assure you that Clever's been a worthy partner and has supported this original solution long past its useful life. Keeping that in mind, PSTA has chosen to renew for only 1 year, because we are planning a major upgrade to the hardware and software. That's pretty much it. I'm going to just ask Al Burns if there's anything specifically related to procurement that he would like to speak on.
No, Julie. Mr. Chair, Al Burns again. I think Julie covered it. But once again, the fiscal impact of this is funded through operating funds. And the recommendation is recommend approval of a 1-year contract for software maintenance with Clever Devices Ltd. for a total contract amount not to exceed $260,662. If there are any questions, Julia or I would be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions? Josh, nothing?
I can come up with some if you'd like.
No.
But I'm actually feeling pretty good at this time.
Okay. Al, the one question I do have is, what was last couple of years contract amounts on these?
Contracts have decreased because were provided in previous contracts.
$164.
Any other questions? Practically, we have to expend.
Yes, this is the hardware where it needs to go. And it's going to look at the other vendors' offerings and probably do a cost-benefit cost and time and training.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Annual financial policies. Debbie, do you want to go ahead and tell us about our annual review and update on our other financial issues?
Thank you, Chair Barkley. It's very hard to compete with trash. Let me see why I have feedback here. Discussions on our annual staff take a fresh.
We've talked about it before on the recommendations and summaries that are put together. When it says fiscal impact, it says operating budget or capital budget. For me, it would be helpful, instead of asking each time, what is the budget line item for that piece, right? So is it in the budget? Is it within the budget that we've already approved, or is it bigger than the budget that we've already approved? To help just give a guideline as to.
We suspended fares due to the coronavirus to keep social distancing away from our customers. We actually have a yellow chain that keeps even more distance in the prior wearing mask. Our next planning via contactless mobile 2021, that will
Increasing.
We are really master vendor. We are with it. So we'll get that going. Industry sessions.
Thanks a lot, Brad. I appreciate it.
Our next, it starts at time. Regular.
Bye. See you tonight.
Okay.
Good night.
Right.
You didn't